Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. And today in Grammaticus Books, we're going to try to answer the question, is there such a thing as a trash Conan novel? And specifically, is it this novel right here, Conan the Buccaneer, number 6 in the Lancer Ace paperback series that was published by L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter. This book being published originally in 1971. And by the end of the video, we're going to try to answer that question. Now, there is no such thing as a bad Robert E. Howard Conan story. It just doesn't exist. From his shortest short story up to his longest novel, Hour of the Dragon, the quality of those books ranged from good to just absolutely superb. Robert E. Howard is one of the greatest pulp fiction writers of all time, if not the greatest pulp fiction writer of all time. However, we have these two other characters by the name of Lynn Carter and L. Sprague de Camp, who starting in 1966 put out these mass market paperbacks which familiarized a lot of people, including myself, to Conan the Barbarian all the way back in the 70s and the 80s and kept the story alive. But they also saw fit to reach into those stories, edit some of them rather heavily, and actually insert some of their own pastiche stories, this being one of them. This is one of the full-length novels that was done by L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter, number 6 in the series, Conan the Buccaneer. And is it trash? Or is it actually a book that is worthy of being within the Robert E. Howard Conan lexicon and bibliography? Now, I know a lot of you Robert E. Howard purists out there are probably yelling at your computer screens right now saying, no, only the original stories can be included in the canon of Conan. But these are the ones that I grew up on. And I think we do owe a debt of gratitude to Lynn Carter and L. Sprague de Camp for keeping Conan alive through the 1970s and the 80s, or else we wouldn't have the popularity that Conan currently enjoys today with the new Titan comic books, with the new stories coming out. If it wasn't for them, I really don't think that we would be talking about a lot of the Conan stories today that we are if they had not saw fit to publish these novels. So I think we need to give them a little bit of credit there, but we do need to put the measuring stick, the literary measuring stick, up to their novel here and determine if it's a trashy novel, is this garbage, or is it something that we can count as a solid Conan story that belongs in the Conan bibliography. So Conan the Buccaneer, as the name implies, it's Conan as a buccaneer in the employ of King Fedrugo of the Kingdom of Zingara. And it is actually a sequel to a Robert E. Howard story called Pool the Black One that came out in 1933, where Conan takes over the command of a Zingaran privateer vessel by the name of the Wastrel. And in this book here, he's still in command of the Wastrel and is acting as a privateer, which is just a pirate with a license under the Kingdom of Zingara. And he becomes enmeshed at the start of the story in a plot to overthrow King Fedrugo and insert onto the throne instead the Duke of Cordova, Valagro, that's his name. There's too many names ending in O's in the Kingdom of Zingara. And Valagro, the Duke of Cordova, is working in conjunction with another buccaneer, Zingaran buccaneer by the name of Zorono. And Zorono has with him a priest of Set, Menkara, who they're using his spellcasting and sorcerous ways in order to enmesh the mind of the king to get him to marry his beautiful daughter, Princess Chabella, to the Duke of Cordova, and then he will then take over the throne of the Kingdom of Zingara. And that's where this story kicks off. And the first half of this story, the first 10 chapters, it's about 180 pages in total, are all about Conan on the high seas, having a high seas adventure where he and this other Zingaran buccaneer by the name of Zorono and his ship, the Petrel, are going to the Nameless Isle in order to find a deserted temple on this forgotten tropical island where they are trying to get a magical piece of equipment to help them enlist the services of the Thoth Amon, the chief sorcerer of the priests of Set, so that he can help them take over the kingdom. So you have this high seas adventure going in the front half of the book. And then in the second half of the book, it turns into this plan to usurp the throne, and Conan and his compatriots trying to stop this plan, with Thoth Amon having now taken over full control of this plan to try to take control of the Kingdom of Zingara. And it's a good novel. It's a good, respectful novel. Carter and de Camp, they both know and understand the Conan stories thoroughly inside and out, having published all of them and edited them. They know Conan, they respect Conan, and they bring in a lot of the traditional Conan elements from the Howard stories and inject them quite ably here into Conan the Buccaneer and it gives it a richness and a depth and a level of excitement that you typically get out of a Robert E. Howard Conan story that give it an air of authenticity, although it is not written anywhere near the quality level that Robert E. Howard could write. And Lynn Carter was sort of a cut below L. Sprague de Camp in his writing abilities as well. And you can see a distinct drop off in the quality of the writing, just slight, but it is distinct from the front half of the book to the second half of this book. Because I think Lynn Carter wrote the second half of the book, and I think L. Sprague de Camp wrote the first half. And the book is divided plot-wise into two as well. You have the adventure on the high sea in the first 10 chapters, and then you have the battle for the throne of Zingara in the last 10 chapters. And there's a distinct shift in the quality and the tone and the style of the writing that happens there right at chapter 11. And that's how I think they divided up this book, with L. Sprague de Camp doing the first half and Lynn Carter doing the second half. And speaking of this book, I forgot to mention, I need to bring it out, the wonderful, wonderful cover here by Frank Frazetta. Here's a better, more blown up copy of it with this Ace Fantasy series from 1986 with just that spectacular Frazetta cover here on this story that was originally published back in 1971 by DeCamp and Carter. Just wonderful. Had to make sure I got that in there. But like I said, this book, it actually does a good and competent job of writing a Conan story with all of the typical Conan plot lines and the Conan artifacts from the Robert E. Howard novels that you would expect to see in here. You've got Thoth Amon, you've got the Book of Skelos, the Nameless Isle, sea adventures, high sea adventures and battles on the high seas, sword fights, sorcery, death rays coming from fingers, the Cobra Crown, the King of Zingara, plots to usurp the throne, beautiful princesses, damsels in distress, fabulous treasures, magical temple guardians, deserted temples that have magical guardians in them that you have to defeat. And it's got all those elements that you would come to know, that you know and would come to expect in your typical Conan story. And it's done in a competent manner. And for that reason, I'm saying this is not trash. It is actually an enjoyable, a lighthearted adventure novel in the vein of Robert E. Howard's Conan that deserves to be counted and included and at least considered in the bibliography of the Conan stories. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. If you've read Conan the Buccaneer, what you thought of it, if you thought it was a good story, or if you have a different opinion, put it down in the comments section below. Now, this book right here is actually a sequel. It's a follow-on story to an original story by Robert E. Howard that was written in 1933 called Pool the Black One. And Pool the Black One is where Conan actually takes command of the Wastrel, the ship that he has here in Conan the Buccaneer. He kills the Zingaran captain of it, Captain Zaporova, and they also in that story wind up on a nameless island out in the middle of the sea, covered in jungle, that also has a abandoned temple in it, that has another temple guardian and a fabulous treasure and a damsel in distress. So that story, Pool the Black One by Robert E. Howard in 1933, is almost mimicked exactly in the first half of this book, Conan the Buccaneer. But there are some slight differences to it, enough to make it interesting and give it its own sort of flavor and feel that L. Sprague de Camp wrote here in the first half of the book. At least I think it was L. Sprague de Camp. But it's interesting that they did take an original Conan novel and build off it here for Conan the Buccaneer, which I think just sort of adds the authenticity of this novel, Conan the Buccaneer. And this novel here was actually adapted into comic book form in The Savage Sword of Conan. And, ooh, I got tape on there. Get that tape off. Savage Sword of Conan number 40, which is called A Dream of Blood, is actually the first half of Conan the Buccaneer. Here you've got Princess Chabella on the cover, the daughter of King Fadrugo, Conan. And there you've got the temple guardian on the Nameless Isle that he has to battle, the giant stone toad. The art inside is by John Buscema with Tony DeZuniga doing the inking. And it's just spectacular stuff. The adaptation is by Roy Thomas. So you got Roy Thomas, John Buscema, and whenever you get those two together, you're just going to have graphic art magic going on the page. And so here you've got the comic book adaptation of it, Conan the Buccaneer. And there was also a comic book adaptation of Pool the Black One in Savage Sword of Conan number 22. And again, it's almost an identical plot line to the first half. Oh, and here you've got a inside pin-up here by Ernie Chan. Very unusual, very rare. Ernie Chan did a lot of the inks on Savage Sword of Conan for John Buscema's artwork for his pencils, but you rarely see where Ernie Chan did both the pencils and the ink work, and that looks great. I would have loved to see Ernie Chan do a complete series, a complete story. I think that would have been spectacular, and I think he might have at one point. And here you've got Sonny Trinidad doing the inks to John Buscema's pencils, again with a Roy Thomas adaptation, and it looks just great. Sonny Trinidad's got a very heavy hand with the inks, but I think it works well with John Buscema's artwork. And again, you've just got that just wonderful, spectacular graphic artwork going on here in Savage Swords of Conan. I think Savage Sword of Conan's issues 1 through 50, some of the greatest graphic art storytelling that was ever put together in the history of graphic arts. And then you've got a third Conan story that is the same thing. You've got Zingarian Buccaneers, you've got deserted islands, you've got the Kushite coast covered in jungle, a hidden lost temple and temple guardians and damsels in distress. Like I said, it's a very popular theme here in the Conan bibliography and the Conan lexicon that occurs over and over because it's such a fun theme. And this is Marvel Comics Super Special number 2, Savage Sword of Conan, and it is Revenge of the Barbarian. And again, you've got all the same plot elements in here, except this one is a Savage Sword story that was done completely in color. And to my knowledge, there were only 2 Savage Swords. There were also Marvel Super Specials that were done in full color, this being the first one, I believe. And it just looks spectacular. John Buscema in this full-page magazine format in full color just really makes it leap off the page here. Got a nice sword fight here between Conan and another Zingarian captain, which seems to happen quite frequently in Conan's career, about as frequently as him running into a wizard in a tower. But that's it. That's Conan the Buccaneer. I do think that it deserves to be part of the canon. I know that's heresy in some people's eyes, but if you disagree with me, put it down in the comments section. If you agree with me, let me know why. Put it down in the comments section. I do read and respond to all the comments. And with that, I'm going to wrap this one up. It's Conan the Buccaneer. And I'm going to say take care, be safe, and I will catch you guys next time.